Your mother will be more comfortable near the kitchen, Claire said, sliding the place card toward my son as if the decision had already been approved. Evan glanced at table 19, then at me. Behind the chair, a steel service door opened every few seconds. Warm air, the smell of roasted vegetables, and the sound of stacked plates moved through the room. "It is only one dinner, Mom," he said. Claire needed the front tables for people connected to the project. I looked across the Dominion Foundry at the long table beneath the stage. Architects, sponsors, and members of the Toronto Heritage Council sat beneath the original steel beams. One chair beside Evan remained empty. My place card read, Milena Fraser, family guest. They had removed Kralj, the name printed on every engineering record I had signed before marriage. They had also removed my profession. I placed the card beside my water glass and sat down. At 69, I had learned that some insults arrived dressed as organization. Claire adjusted the seating chart and smiled at a photographer. She was 36, polished, and careful with every detail that could appear in Harbor North Studios publicity. My son was being honored that evening for leading the restoration proposal for the building around us. I had come wearing the navy dress, Colin once said, made me look fearless. Inside my handbag was the red leather field notebook I had carried through this same building more than 30 years earlier. The lights dimmed. A video began across the large screen above the stage. Old photographs of the foundry appeared, followed by computer renderings of Evan's new design. Then, a structural drawing filled the screen. I recognized the uneven curve of the pencil line near the north beam. I recognized the handwritten load calculation. I had drawn both in 1992. The lower right corner had been cropped away. That was where my full signature had been. Milena Kralj. Claire looked toward the screen, but not toward me. Evan kept his eyes on the stage. I reached into my handbag and touched the edge of the notebook. Before I could open it, a man stopped beside my chair. Marcus Bell, the owner of the Dominion Foundry, stared at me for several seconds. His hair had turned silver at the temples, but I remembered the young carpenter he had once been. Milena Kralj Fraser, he said. Nearby conversations softened. He looked at my place card, then at the service door behind me. Why is the engineer who saved this building sitting beside the kitchen? Across the room, Evan finally turned around. 36 years earlier, no one in Toronto knew what to do with my engineering degree. I arrived from Ljubljana in 1986, at 29 years old, with one suitcase, a folder of university records, and enough savings to rent a small room in Scarborough for 2 months. Canadian firms praised my education, then offered me drafting work beneath people with less experience. I accepted because pride did not pay rent. During the day, I prepared technical drawings. At night, I completed the courses and examinations required to practice in Ontario. Colin Fraser worked as a construction estimator in the same office. He never treated my accent as evidence that I understood less. When other men repeated my calculations as though they had invented them, Colin quietly asked whose initials were on the original sheet. We married 3 years later and moved to East York. In 1991, our firm was hired to assess the Dominion Foundry. The century-old brick building had damaged connections, corroded steel, and enough neglect to make demolition seem cheaper than repair. Several senior engineers recommended removing most of the original frame. I disagreed. The structure was not failing everywhere. The danger was concentrated at specific joints where water had entered for decades. I spent 6 weeks measuring beams, checking loads, and tracing cracks through the north section. My solution strengthened only the damaged areas. It preserved the historic steelwork and allowed construction to continue in stages. Marcus Bell was a young carpenter on that project. One afternoon, a contractor blamed him for a measurement error made before his crew arrived. I opened my Redfield notebook, showed the dated entry, and stopped Marcus from losing his apprenticeship over someone else's mistake. He never forgot it. Neither did the building. The repairs held through winters, renovations, and changing owners. I remained in structural conservation for more than 30 years, working on warehouses, theaters, and old industrial buildings across Ontario. Evan grew up beside my drafting table. He learned to read elevations before he could drive. On weekends, I took him through Toronto and showed him why old buildings deserved another life. He became an architect and later joined Harbor North Studio. I believed he respected where his ideas began. I never asked him to build his career beneath my name. I only expected him not to erase it. Sitting beside the kitchen at the gala, I looked again at the drawing on the screen. It had once taught my son how a building could be saved. Now it was helping him receive an award without telling anyone who had drawn it first. Marcus's question traveled farther than Claire wanted. She crossed the room before Evan reached us and placed one hand on the back of my chair. "There has been a seating limitation," she said. "Milena is perfectly comfortable here." Marcus looked at the service door opening behind me, then at the empty chair beside Evan's table. "She can sit with me," he said. Claire's smile did not move. "The front tables are reserved for sponsors in the current project team." I could have accepted Marcus's offer. Instead, I picked up my place card and set it back beside my glass. "I can remain here," I said. "The view is useful." Claire relaxed too quickly. She thought I meant the stage. I meant her. The video continued. A narrator described how Harbor North Studio had rediscovered a forgotten structural strategy hidden within the foundry's original frame. My drawing filled the screen again. The line weights were cleaner, but the measurements were mine. Even one small correction I had written above the north beam remained visible. Only my signature was missing. 6 months earlier, Claire had visited my house in East York with a portable scanner. She said Evan needed family photographs for a presentation about his early influences. While I made coffee, she asked whether she could copy several pages from my old field notebook. I believe she wanted images of Evan sitting beside my drafting table as a child. I did not ask why she scanned the calculations too. Now I knew. "That is historical reference material," Claire whispered when she noticed me watching the screen. "The award is for the new design. Then why remove the name from the old one?" I asked. She looked toward the photographers instead of answering. A few minutes later, the gala photographer called Evan and Claire toward the brick wall beneath the Harbor North logo. Marcus motioned for me to join them. I had taken only 2 steps when Claire moved between us. "Project team first," she said. The camera flashed. Evan did not turn around. I stopped where I was. The kitchen door opened behind me again. Marcus watched Claire rearrange the group until I disappeared from the frame. Then he came closer and lowered his voice. "Do you still have the original records?" I rested my hand on the red leather notebook inside my handbag. "I brought more than memories." His expression changed. "Let me see it before they present the award." Across the room, Evan finally left the photograph and began walking toward us. The red leather notebook had been Colin's gift on the morning I was assigned my first full structural survey at the Dominion Foundry. He placed it beside my coffee and said a good engineer should never trust memory when a building was asking to be understood. I carried it through 6 weeks of inspections in 1991 and 1992. Its pages held beam dimensions, load calculations, sketches of corroded connections, meeting notes, permit references, and every change I approved. Near the center was the drawing that had appeared on the gala screen. My initials marked the early draft. My full signature, Milena Kralj, appeared beneath the final version beside the municipal file number. Marcus led me into a small office overlooking the ballroom. The sound of applause passed through the brick wall as another sponsor was introduced. I placed the notebook on the desk and opened it carefully. Marcus touched the edge of the page, but did not move it. "I remember this," he said. "You carried it everywhere." He opened a cabinet and removed an old photograph of the building's restoration team. I stood near the center, wearing a hard hat, and holding the same notebook against my side. Marcus was 3 people behind me, young enough that his work jacket looked too large. Beside the photograph was a brass plaque that had once hung near the foundry entrance. My name appeared beneath the heading Structural Rehabilitation Team. It had been removed during a later renovation and stored instead of rehung. Marcus looked from the plaque to the drawing on the gala monitor, visible through the office window. "They did not discover your work," he said. "They edited you out of it." I thought of Colin. He had spent years reminding me that modesty and disappearance were not the same thing. I had always believed good work would carry its own truth. That evening I saw how easily truth could be cropped, renamed, and placed beneath someone else's logo. Marcus asked whether I wanted him to stop the award presentation. "Not yet," I said. Evan needs one chance to tell me what he believes he has done. I closed the notebook and held it against my chest. When I stepped back into the corridor, my son was waiting beneath the old steel beams. His eyes moved first to the red cover, then to my face. "Mom," he said, "Claire told me Marcus is making this into something it is not." I placed the notebook on the narrow table between us and opened it to the page from the screen. "Then tell me what it is." "Did you know this came from my notebook?" I asked. Evan looked at the drawing, then at the ballroom beyond the corridor. "I knew it was based on your early work," he said. "Based on?" I turned the notebook so the page faced him. The measurements, the municipal file number, and my signature were all visible. The image on the screen came from this page. He rubbed one hand across his jaw. "Our team developed it into a modern system. The award is for what we did now, not what happened 30 years ago." "Then why remove my name?" Before he answered, Claire entered the corridor carrying a tablet and a folded seating plan. Her expression remained calm, but she closed the door behind her. "This has become unnecessarily dramatic," she said. I pointed to the drawing. "Who cropped the signature?" Claire glanced at Evan. "I approved the visual treatment. The notebook is part of the family archive. We used it as historical inspiration." "A family photograph remembers us," I said. "An engineering drawing records responsibility." Her mouth tightened. "No one is denying that you worked here." "The video did." Evan stepped closer to the table. "Mom, I was going to thank you in my speech. After you received the award?" He did not answer. "You knew Claire scanned the calculations?" I asked. "Yes." "You knew the image had no attribution?" His eyes dropped to the notebook. "I assumed the project credits would cover the historical sources. My name was not in the project credits." Claire said the gala needed one clear creative narrative. Too many names would confuse sponsors and weaken Evan's position as lead architect. She spoke about my work as though it were an inconvenient footnote. I looked at my son. "And table 19? He exhaled slowly. Claire handled the seating. "I did not think it mattered. You planned to thank me from the stage while I sat beside the kitchen under a card that erased my name and profession. It was one evening." "No," said. "It was a decision repeated in 3 places. The table, the photograph, the drawing." Voices rose inside the ballroom as the presenter announced that the Heritage Award would be given in 10 minutes. I closed the notebook. "You have a choice. Tell the council where that drawing came from before you walk on stage. Or let the official records tell them afterward." Evan looked toward the sound of applause. "Can we get through tonight and correct the wording tomorrow?" The corridor became very quiet. I had asked my son for the truth before the award. He had asked me to wait until after the applause. Marcus opened the door behind us. "There will be no award presentation yet," he said. Marcus walked onto the stage before the presenter could announce Evan's name. He did not accuse anyone. He simply asked for the room's attention and said that the history of the Dominion Foundry had just been presented without naming one of the engineers who made its survival possible. Claire reached the edge of the stage first. "This should be handled privately," she said. "The sponsors are here." Marcus looked toward the large screen where my drawing still appeared without a signature. "The error was shown publicly," he replied. "The correction cannot remain private." Conversations softened across the nearest tables. I stayed beside the corridor entrance with the red notebook in my hands. Marcus introduced me by my full name, Milena Krauge Fraser. He told the guests that I had led the structural work that preserved the foundry's original steel frame in the early 1990s. Several heads turned toward table 19. The kitchen door opened behind my empty chair. Dr. Asha Raman rose from the council table and walked toward us. She was the chair of the Heritage Award Committee and had spent most of her career studying urban conservation. She did not praise me or condemn Evan. She asked one question: "Do you have the original records?" I placed the notebook on the small table near the stage. Asha opened it carefully. She examined the dates, the calculations, and the municipal file number beneath my signature. Then, she looked up at the image on the screen. Claire stepped closer. "The drawing was used only as historical inspiration." Asha pointed toward the cropped corner. Then why was the source removed from the image? Claire said the design team wanted a clean visual presentation. Clean, I repeated. Without the person who made it. Evan came onto the stage. He still had a chance to tell the truth plainly. He looked at the sponsors, the council members, and finally, at me. This project belongs to many people, he began. My name did not come next. He spoke about collaboration, reinterpretation, and the responsibilities of a modern design team. Every sentence moved around the fact without touching it. Asha turned another page in the notebook. This permit number should lead to the original municipal drawings, she said. She read the number aloud. Marcus asked his staff to contact the city archive immediately. Claire whispered that the award announcement could still continue while the records were checked. Aisha closed the notebook. No, she said. Not until we know whose work is being honored. The applause Evan had asked me to wait for never began. Marcus's operations manager returned from the venue office with a digital copy of the municipal rehabilitation file obtained during the foundry's most recent renovation. Asha placed the scanned drawing beside my open notebook. The beam numbers matched. The measurements matched. So did the handwritten correction above the north connection. At the bottom of the municipal sheet was the professional stamp and the name that had disappeared from the gala screen, Milena Kralj. The room did not erupt. It became quieter. Marcus explained that he had worked on the restoration as a young carpenter and remembered me directing the structural repairs. He showed Asha the old team photograph and the brass plaque once displayed in the entrance hall. My name appeared on both. Aisha turned toward Evan. Did you know the image in your presentation came from your mother's notebook? Evan looked at me before answering. Yes. The single word carried farther than all the explanations he had given in the corridor. Asha asked whether Harbor North had received permission to reproduce the drawing without attribution. Evan said he believed the page belonged to a family archive and that his team had substantially developed the concept. Claire stepped forward. I made the visual decision, she said. We needed one clear creative narrative. Asha looked toward the screen, where my work still appeared beneath the Harbor North logo. You removed the signature to make the narrative clearer? Claire did not answer immediately. Then she said too many historical credits would have distracted from the current project. I closed the notebook. You did not simplify the story, I said. You removed the person who made it possible. Asha announced that the council could not present the award that evening. The nomination would be paused, while the project records, permissions, and attribution were formally reviewed. No one accused Evan of a crime. No one needed to. He had admitted knowing where the drawing came from. I returned to table 19 and picked up my place card. Milena Fraser, family guest, I read. That was the only title they believed I had left. Marcus asked the staff to add a chair for me at the council table. I thanked him and declined. I do not need a better seat to prove where I stood. I placed the card inside the red notebook and walked toward the exit beneath the steel beams I had helped preserve. Evan followed several steps behind me. For the first time that evening, he was not asking me to wait until after the applause. There would be no applause. Only records, questions, and the consequences of every place they had chosen to remove my name. The review took 4 weeks. The Heritage Council did not accuse Evan of stealing a project, and Harbor North Studio did not collapse overnight. The consequences were quieter and more precise. The award nomination was withdrawn from the current cycle. Every presentation, video, and project record connected to the Dominion Foundry had to be corrected. My name was added as the engineer responsible for the original structural solution. Evan stepped away from his role as project lead, while the firm examined how historical material had been used. Claire was removed from all communication related to the foundry. The city archive updated the public record, and Marcus commissioned a new plaque for the entrance. When he showed me the draft, my name appeared alone at the top. I asked him to change it. The carpenters, technicians, inspectors, and engineers who had worked beside me deserve to be remembered too. Recognition should correct an omission, not create a new one. Evan came to my house in East York on a cold Sunday afternoon. He stood beside the drafting table where he had learned to read plans as a child. I did not think I was taking anything from you, he said. The notebook was always in our home. I placed the red cover between us. You thought being my son made my work yours. He looked down. I thought I was continuing it. Continuing work begins by naming where it came from. He said Claire had convinced him that too many credits would weaken the presentation. I reminded him that he had seen the cropped image and still asked me to wait until after the award. You did not only remove my name, I said. You expected my silence to protect yours. Evan apologized without asking me to contact the council or defend his reputation. That was the first useful thing he did after the gala. I told him trust would return only when he corrected every record where my work had appeared, including the ones no one had ordered him to change. Claire sent an email calling the entire matter a misunderstanding about attribution. I did not answer. A misunderstanding ends when the truth is explained. She had understood enough to crop a signature. 2 weeks later, 3 women contacted me through the Ontario Engineering Network. One was Serbian, one Romanian, and one Ukrainian. Each had trained outside Canada. Each had watched her calculations or designs appear beneath someone else's name. I read their messages at my kitchen table while the red notebook rested beside my tea. For years, I had believed good work would speak for itself. Those women already knew the danger of that belief. I began writing a different kind of plan. 6 months later, I unlocked the doors of Foundations Forward Toronto inside a renovated training studio in East York. The room held drafting tables, sample building materials, computer stations, and shelves filled with reference manuals for Canadian certification. On the wall near the entrance hung a framed copy of the first page from my Redfield notebook. The original now belonged to the Toronto Public Archive, where no one could crop my name from it again. The first group included women from Serbia, Romania, Ukraine, Slovenia, and other parts of Europe. Some had spent years preparing technical work under titles lower than their qualifications. Others had watched supervisors present their calculations without attribution. We taught them how to build professional portfolios, preserve project records, understand authorship, prepare for licensing requirements, and ask direct questions before their work disappeared into someone else's presentation. Dr. Asha Raman helped design the professional ethics workshops. Marcus Bell donated materials for the practice space, but he refused to place his company name above the door. This one belongs to the women doing the work, he said. Evan came every second Saturday. He helped participants organize technical drawings and create clear project histories. I did not give him a leadership title. He was there to contribute, not to become the center of another story. Over those months, he corrected every Harbor North record that used my work. He also found 2 internal presentations the council had never requested and added proper attribution without being asked. I noticed. I did not call it forgiveness. Trust grows slowly, like a foundation inspected one layer at a time. Claire did not participate. Her last message said she hoped everyone could move forward. I had moved forward. I simply had not invited her to direct the route. During our first public workshop, a Serbian engineer named Jelena placed a thick portfolio on the table. She had worked on 3 Canadian projects, yet her name appeared on none of the public files. She told me she no longer knew how to prove what she had done. I slid a blank archival label toward her. Write your full name first, I said, before anyone else tells the story. She wrote carefully. Then the other women did the same. The room filled with names, dates, drawings, and records that could no longer be dismissed as memories. I once believed good work would remember the person who created it. At 69, I understood something better. Buildings need foundations. Women need records. And starting over sometimes begins by placing your own name where no one can remove it.